This video is part of our Gentle series, Bedtime Animal Facts to Fall Asleep To. The idea is simple. Sometimes when we are lying in bed, it can be hard to quiet the mind, so instead of tossing and turning, you can listen to calm, ordinary facts about animals. Tonight's focus is the chinchilla, a soft and gentle creature that makes the perfect companion for bedtime learning. This episode is filled with chinchilla facts, from how they have the softest fur of any land mammal to the way they bathe in dust instead of water. These facts are not meant to excite you, but to give your thoughts something steady and quiet to follow, helping your body relax and your breathing slow until sleep naturally kicks over. You do not need to remember every detail. The facts will flow gently, one after another, guiding you into rest. So settle in, get comfortable, and let the calm rhythm of chinchilla facts carry you into a peaceful night's sleep. What is a chinchilla? A chinchilla is a small animal with a round body, large ears, short front legs, long back legs, and a fluffy tail. Its body is covered in extremely soft, thick fur that feels smooth and silky to the touch. The fur is so dense that it is difficult to see the skin beneath it. Chinchillas are about the size of a small rabbit, usually around 10 to 15 inches long, with a tail that can add another 5 to 6 inches. The head of a chinchilla is wide at the top, with dark, shiny eyes, a short nose, and long whiskers that help it sense things around it. The ears are round and thin, standing upright on top of the head. The chinchilla's front feet are small and shaped for holding food, while the back feet are longer and stronger, built for jumping and fast movement. The tail is covered in fur and curves upward slightly. A chinchilla's fur can come in many colors, but the most common natural color is a bluish gray. The fur is so thick that each spot on the chinchilla's body can have more than 50 hairs growing from a single follicle. This helps protect the animal from cold temperatures and wind. Because their fur is so dense, chinchillas do not have parasites like fleas or ticks living in their coat. Chinchillas belong to a group of animals called rodents. This group includes animals that have sharp front teeth made for gnawing. A chinchilla's teeth grow throughout its entire life and are colored yellow or orange. Its body is built for quick movements, and it can leap several feet into the air if needed. The animal's bones are light and flexible, which helps it squeeze into small spaces and move around rocky areas. When sitting still, a chinchilla often looks calm and alert. Its body is usually crouched low, and its ears may move slightly to listen for sounds. Its fur appears very smooth, and its eyes remain wide open even in low light. The tail rests behind the body, and the nose may twitch as the animal sniffs the air. A chinchilla is not a type of rabbit, mouse, or squirrel, although it may look a little like each of these. It is its own kind of animal with features that are not found altogether in any other species. The thick fur, large ears, long back legs, and short front arms give the chinchilla a special appearance that makes it easy to recognize once seen. Chinchillas are real animals that live in certain parts of the world and can also be found in human care. Their unusual body shape, soft fur, and quiet behavior make them different from most animals people are familiar with. A chinchilla is a warm-blooded animal that breathes air, has a backbone, and is covered in fur, which means it belongs to a group of animals called mammals. Like all mammals, chinchillas give birth to live young instead of laying eggs, and the mothers produce milk to feed their babies. This is one of the main traits that separates mammals from other groups such as birds, reptiles, amphibians, and fish. The fur of a chinchilla is thicker and softer than that of any other land mammal, which is one of its most recognizable features. Even within the mammal group, the chinchilla's coat stands out for its density and texture. Chinchillas belong to a smaller group within mammals called rodents. The scientific name for this group is rodentia. Rodents are defined by having 2 upper front teeth and 2 lower front teeth that never stop growing throughout their lives. These teeth are called incisors. They are long, narrow, and strong, with hard enamel on the front that is often orange or yellow in color. This enamel is harder than the material on the back of the tooth, so every time the chinchilla chews, the back wears down faster, keeping the tooth sharp. This design allows rodents to gnaw through wood, plant stems, and even hard seeds without their teeth wearing down too much. If chinchillas did not regularly chew and grind their teeth, the teeth would grow too long and make it hard for them to eat. This constant tooth growth is a feature shared with other rodents, but chinchillas use it in their own way to process the dry grasses and tough plants found in their natural habitat. Within the rodent group, chinchillas are part of a family called Chinchillidae. This family contains only a few animals, including chinchillas themselves and their close relatives known as biscachas. Members of this family share certain body features, such as long back legs for jumping, short front legs for grasping food, and fur that is much denser than most other rodents. While many rodents live in a wide range of environments, the chinchilla family is adapted to life in cool, dry mountain regions with rocky terrain. These shared features help scientists identify them as part of the same family. The scientific naming system, called taxonomy, organizes living things into a series of groups that become more specific at each step. The chinchilla's full scientific classification begins at the broadest level with the kingdom Animalia, which includes all animals. It then narrows to the phylum Chordata, which contains animals with a backbone. Next is the class Mammalia, for all mammals. The order Rodentia includes all rodents. The family Chinchillidae includes chinchillas and viscachas. The genus Chinchilla contains only chinchillas themselves, and within this genus there are 2 species. One is Chinchilla lanigera, which has a slimmer body and longer tail, and is the type most often kept as a pet. The other is Chinchilla, which has a shorter body and a thicker neck, and is now extremely rare in the wild. This system of classification allows scientists all over the world to understand exactly which animal is being discussed, even if they speak different languages. For example, if a researcher in one country says Chinchilla lanigera, scientists in another country know it refers to the same species without confusion. This system also shows how chinchillas are related to other animals. Even though they are rodents, chinchillas are more closely related to guinea pigs and viscachas than they are to rats, mice, or squirrels. Their place in the rodent order is shaped by their shared physical traits, behaviors, and evolutionary history. Understanding what kind of animal a chinchilla is provides a starting point for learning about the rest of its life. Its body shape, teeth, fur, and family connections all give clues about where it comes from, how it survives, and how it compares to other animals in the world. A chinchilla is not just another small mammal. It is part of a very small and specialized group that has adapted to thrive in a unique and challenging environment. Chinchillas are part of a small family of animals, and they do not have many close relatives. Their nearest living relatives are called viscachas. Like chinchillas, viscachas are rodents with thick fur and long back legs that are built for jumping. They also live in parts of South America, although they are found in different regions and habitats. Viscachas tend to have longer bodies, longer ears, and tails with less fur than a chinchilla's thick plume. They spend much of their time on the ground and are often more active during daylight than chinchillas, which prefer to stay hidden until night. There are a few different kinds of viscachas. Mountain viscachas live in high, rocky areas similar to the wild homes of chinchillas. Their fur is thick enough to keep them warm in the cold winds of the mountains, but it is not as dense as the coat of a chinchilla. Plains viscachas live in grassy regions at lower altitudes. They dig long burrows and form large social groups, sometimes with dozens of animals. While they share a family connection with chinchillas, their habits and appearance are quite different. In the past, there were more species of chinchillas and viscachas than there are today. Fossil evidence shows that their ancestors lived in South America for millions of years, adapting to changes in climate and landscape over time. Some of these older species were larger than the chinchillas we know today, while others had different fur textures or body proportions. Over time, many of these species disappeared, leaving only the few that exist now. Chinchillas and viscachas are also distantly related to guinea pigs, another group of South American rodents. Although guinea pigs have shorter legs and no long tails, they share certain features in their teeth, skull shape, and digestive system. These similarities link them together in the larger rodent order, even though they belong to different families within it. Understanding which animals are related to chinchillas helps explain some of their traits. Their strong back legs, for example, are a feature they share with viscachas and may come from a common ancestor that lived in rocky mountain terrain. Their thick fur is another family trait, although chinchillas have taken it to an extreme that no other relative matches. Studying related species can give scientists clues about how chinchillas develop, their unique features, and how they might change in the future as their environments continue to shift. There are two living species of chinchilla, and while they may seem similar at first glance, they have clear differences in appearance, body structure, and where they are found. The more common species is called Chinchilla lanigera. This species has a slimmer, more elongated body, a longer tail, and slightly larger ears. Its fur is extremely soft and thick, with the classic bluish-gray color most people think of when they imagine a chinchilla. The face of Chinchilla lanigera is slightly narrower, and the legs are proportioned in a way that gives this animal an elegant, almost delicate look. This is the species that has been successfully kept and bred in captivity for many generations. Because of this, almost every pet chinchilla in the world today belongs to Chinchilla lanigera. The second species is called Chinchilla chinchilla. This species is sometimes referred to as the short-tailed chinchilla because of its noticeably shorter, thicker tail. Its body is more compact, and its neck appears thicker and more muscular than that of Chinchilla lanigera. The fur is just as soft, but may look slightly denser because of the animal's rounder shape. The ears are smaller and more rounded, and the head is broader. This species once lived in large numbers in several parts of the Andes Mountains, but it is now one of the rarest mammals in the wild. Overhunting and habitat loss have caused its numbers to drop so severely that in many areas it is considered extinct. Today, Wild populations of chinchilla survive only in a few remote mountain locations where they are strictly protected by law. Although both species share the same general body plan and habits, their small differences developed over many generations as they adapted to slightly different environments. The long-tailed chinchilla lanigera tends to be found in rockier, more open mountain slopes where its longer tail and larger ears help with balance and heat control. The short-tailed chinchilla, with its compact body and thick neck, is better suited to colder, windier, high-altitude zones where a smaller surface area helps conserve heat. Scientists believe that these differences are examples of how even closely related animals can change in subtle ways when they live in slightly different habitats. In captivity, people have bred Chinchilla lanigera into many different fur colors and patterns that do not occur naturally in the wild. These include white, black, beige, and combinations of several shades. These are not new species, but rather different color variations within the same species. The variety of colors is the result of selective breeding, where people choose chinchillas with certain fur traits to be parents so that those traits appear in the next generation, while color changes are common in domestic chinchillas. The basic body shape, fur texture, and other natural features remain the same as in their wild relatives. Knowing the differences between the two species of chinchilla is important for understanding their history and conservation needs. Chinchilla lanigera is considered near threatened in the wild, but is well established in captivity. Chinchilla is critically endangered, with only small scattered wild populations left. Each species tells a part of the chinchilla's story, showing how they have adapted to their environments and how humans have influenced their survival. By studying them both, scientists can learn more about how animals evolve, how they respond to challenges in their habitats, and what can be done to protect them for the future. Chinchillas are the result of a long line of ancestors that have lived in South America for millions of years. Their family, known as the Chinchillidae, has roots that stretch far back into a time when the continent was home to many unique animals that lived nowhere else on Earth. Scientists believe that the earliest relatives of chinchillas appeared during a period when the Andes Mountains were still rising, creating new high-altitude habitats with cooler temperatures and rocky slopes. These early ancestors would have needed to adapt to the challenges of living in an environment where food was sparse. The air was thin and the weather could change suddenly from warm to freezing. Fossils of ancient members of the Chinchillidae family give scientists clues about what these early animals looked like and how they lived. Some of these relatives were larger than modern chinchillas, with longer legs and different proportions that suggest they might have been more active during the day. Others were smaller, possibly living in burrows and feeding on different types of plants. Over time, the shapes of their bodies, the structure of their teeth, and the thickness of their fur changed as they adjusted to the conditions around them. These changes happened slowly, across thousands or even millions of years, as animals with traits better suited to mountain life were more likely to survive and have young. One of the key adaptations that began early in chinchilla history was the development of dense, insulating fur. In cold, dry environments, fur that could trap warm air close to the body made a big difference in survival. Another important change was in their legs. The back legs became longer and stronger, allowing these animals to leap from rock to rock and escape predators more easily. Their front legs stayed shorter but became skilled at holding and manipulating food, which helped them eat in a sitting position while staying alert to danger. The teeth of chinchillas also have an ancient history. Like all rodents, their ancestors developed front teeth that grew continuously, allowing them to handle tough plants, seeds, and bark. This trait meant they could survive on the types of vegetation available in high altitude regions, which often consisted of hardy grasses and small shrubs rather than soft leaves or fruit. Over millions of years, the ancestors of chinchillas became more and more specialized for life in the Andes Mountains. As the mountains grew higher and the climate became colder and drier, these animals developed traits that made them perfectly suited to this harsh environment. Eventually, the line of animals that would become modern chinchillas split from other relatives like biscachas, each adapting to their own specific range and lifestyle. While viscachas evolved to live in both high mountains and open plains, chinchillas became masters of the steep. Rocky slopes where quick jumps and thick fur offered protection against predators and freezing winds. By the time early human cultures began to settle in the Andes, chinchillas were already well adapted to their mountain homes. They lived in colonies, moved quickly across rocks, and relied on their fur to stay warm in the icy night air. These same features that helped them survive for so long would later make them valuable to people, shaping much of their history from that point onward. The story of chinchilla's ancestors is told through fossils. Fossils are the remains or traces of plants and animals that lived long ago. They form when parts of an animal's body, like bones or teeth, are buried quickly in mud, sand, or volcanic ash. Over millions of years, these remains harden and turn into rock. Fossils help scientists learn what ancient animals looked like, how big they were, and where they lived. Because chinchillas have such small and delicate bones, finding their fossils is rare and special. Fossils from the Chinchillidae family have been found in many parts of South America, especially in the Andes Mountains and surrounding areas. These fossils show that chinchilla ancestors existed at least 10 million years ago during a time called the Miocene epoch. This was a period when the world's climate was warmer and wetter, but the Andes were already starting to rise, creating new mountain habitats. One of the oldest known relatives of the chinchilla is an animal called Eoviscacha. It lived about 12 million years ago and was a bit bigger than today's chinchillas. Fossils of Eoviscacha show that it had teeth similar to modern chinchillas, but a longer body and tail. This suggests that it was an early form that was beginning to develop the traits chinchillas have now. Other fossils found belong to animals named Pleolegostomus and Chinchillopsis. These creatures lived between 5 and 7 million years ago. Their bones tell scientists that they were even closer to today's chinchillas, with thick fur and strong hind legs. Scientists use special tools to study their teeth and skulls to understand how they ate and moved. These studies show that many ancient chinchilla relatives adapted to life in rocky, mountainous areas just like modern chinchillas. Fossil discoveries have also helped scientists understand how chinchillas changed over time. By comparing fossils from different ages, scientists can see how chinchillas' bodies became smaller or larger, how their teeth changed, and how their fur might have thickened. These changes often match shifts in climate. For example, during colder periods, chinchillas developed thicker fur and shorter tails to keep warm. During warmer times, some animals became lighter and more agile. In addition to bones, Fossilized footprints and burrows provide clues about how these animals lived. Footprints show how chinchilla ancestors moved and jumped across the rocky ground. Burrows found in fossil beds suggest that these animals lived in groups and used tunnels to hide from predators or escape harsh weather. These discoveries match what scientists observe in wild chinchillas today. By studying fossils, scientists have learned that chinchillas' ancestors survived many changes in their environment. They lived through ice ages when glaciers covered large parts of the world, and through warmer times when forests and grasslands spread across South America. This long history of adaptation helps explain why chinchillas are so well suited to life in high cold places today. Fossils also teach us about species that no longer exist. Many types of chinchilla relatives went extinct long before humans arrived. These animals may have been larger or smaller, and they lived in different parts of the continent. Their disappearance shows how species can change or vanish when conditions in their homes change too quickly or become too difficult to survive. Understanding the fossil record is important for protecting chinchillas today. It shows that chinchillas are part of a long and special history of animals that have faced many challenges. By learning from the past, scientists and conservationists can make better decisions to help chinchillas survive in the wild, now and in the future. Today, wild chinchillas live in a very specific part of the world. Their home is in the Andes Mountains of South America, mainly in the countries of Chile, Peru, Bolivia, and Argentina. These mountains stretch for thousands of kilometers along the western edge of the continent and are some of the highest in the world. The parts of the Andes where chinchillas live are not the soft, grassy slopes people might imagine when they think of mountains. Instead, they're steep, rocky, and rugged. The ground is covered in stones and boulders with little soil and very few tall plants. In many places, the air is thin because the elevation is so high, sometimes more than 3,000 meters above sea level. The climate in these areas is extreme. Daytime temperatures can be sunny and warm, but the heat does not last long. At night, the temperature can drop sharply, becoming very cold. Rain is rare in many chinchilla habitats, and the air is dry almost all year. In some places, it may not rain for months. Instead of heavy rain, there is sometimes light snow or frost in the winter. This kind of dry and cold climate is called an arid mountain climate. Because of the thin air, sunlight feels stronger, but plants grow slowly, and water is scarce. Chinchillas are usually found in areas with plenty of hiding spots. They make their homes among cracks and rocks, in small caves, or beneath large boulders. These rocky shelters protect them from the wind, the cold, and predators. The rocks also help them stay hidden during the day since their fur blends with the gray and brown colors of the stone. This camouflage makes it harder for birds of prey and other hunters to spot them. The plants that grow in chinchilla habitats are tough and adapted to survive in dry conditions. Small grasses, shrubs, and cactus-like plants are common, but there are no thick forests or large trees. Chinchillas eat these hardy plants, along with seeds and bits of bark. Because food is not always easy to find, chinchillas have to remember where the best plants grow and travel between these spots when they come out to feed. The high mountains are home to other animals too, and chinchillas share their habitat with species like vizcachas, Andean foxes, owls, and eagles. Each of these animals has its own role in the ecosystem. Some are predators that hunt chinchillas, while others compete for semi-foods. This balance of predator and prey, along with the limited food supply, shapes how chinchillas behave and where they choose to live. Living in such a challenging environment has influenced many of the chinchillas' features. Their thick fur is essential for surviving cold nights, while their strong legs and quick jumps help them travel across uneven rocky ground. The dryness of the air means they rarely encounter open water, so their bodies have adapted to get most of the moisture they need from their food. The natural habitat of chinchillas is a place of extreme high altitudes. Thin air, sudden temperature changes, and little rainfall. It is also a place of beauty, with wide views across valleys, sharp peaks rising in the distance, and sky so clear that the stars seem brighter than anywhere else. For chinchillas, this landscape is not just their home. It is the reason they are the way they are today. Every part of their body, from their fur to their feet, has been shaped by the Andes Mountains and the challenges of living there. Wild chinchillas follow a daily rhythm that helps them survive in their challenging mountain environment. They are crepuscular animals, which means they are most active during the early morning hours just before sunrise, and in the late afternoon to early evening as the sun begins to set. These times of day offer cooler temperatures, softer light, and less danger from certain predators. By avoiding the middle of the day, chinchillas reduce the risk of overheating and keep themselves hidden when the sun makes shadows shorter and cover harder to find. During the daylight hours, chinchillas usually remain in their rocky shelters. They may rest, groom themselves, or sleep curled up in small groups. Staying inside their dens protects them from predators like hawks and eagles, which hunt more actively in bright daylight. It also helps them conserve water and energy in a dry mountain air. Even when resting, chinchillas remain alert to sudden noises or vibrations in the ground that could signal danger. Their large ears can pick up faint sounds from far away, and they are quick to dart deeper into shelter if they sense a threat. As evening approaches and the light begins to fade, chinchillas emerge from their hiding places to search for food. They move quickly and quietly over the rocky terrain, stopping often to look around and listen. Because food can be spread out in their environment, chinchillas may travel a surprising distance in a single night to find enough to eat. They nibble on grasses, shrubs, leaves, bark, and seeds, taking small amounts from many different plants before moving on. Chinchillas also spend part of their active time dust bathing. They roll in fine volcanic ash or dusty soil, coating their fur to absorb oils and remove moisture. This keeps their fur clean and fluffy, which is important for insulation and health. Dust bathing is often done in the early morning or evening hours when chinchillas are already out feeding. And it can be a social activity if several chinchillas use the same dusting spot. Nighttime activity is not as common as their crepuscular habits, but chinchillas may remain awake and feeding during parts of the night if food is scarce or if conditions are safe. However, they usually avoid the darkest hours, when certain predators like owls are most active. Their daily routine is flexible and can change with the seasons. In the colder winter months, they may spend longer inside their dens to conserve heat, while in warmer months they might be active for slightly longer periods in the morning and evening. These daily patterns help chinchillas balance the need for food and exercise with the need for safety and conservation of energy. Over countless generations, these habits have become an important part of their survival strategy, allowing them to thrive in one of the most demanding environments in South America. Chinchillas are naturally social animals and live in groups in the wild. These groups, sometimes called herds or colonies, can range from just a few individuals to more than 100. Living together in numbers provides several advantages in their mountainous environment. A group can watch for predators more effectively than a single animal. While some members feed, others remain alert, ready to give warning if danger approaches. This shared vigilance increases the survival chances of the whole group. Within a colony, chinchillas often establish smaller family units. These units may consist of related individuals or animals that have formed bonds over time. They rest and shelter together in connected rocky crevices or dens, using familiar escape routes if threatened. The closeness of these family groups provides warmth during cold nights and protection from strong winds. Chinchilla colonies do not have a single leader in the way some animal groups do. Instead, their social order is based on a loose hierarchy, often influenced by age, size, and experience. Older or stronger chinchillas may have first access to the best feeding spots or dust baths, but conflicts are rare and usually resolved without serious fighting. Most interactions involve subtle movements, postures, or gentle nudges that communicate boundaries or intentions. Communication within the group is important for maintaining social order and safety. Chinchillas use a variety of sounds, such as soft chirps, warning squeaks, and low grunts, to share information or express emotions. A sharp, high-pitched alarm call signals danger, causing the entire group to freeze or retreat into hiding. Scent is another form of communication, with chinchillas marking objects or paths using scent glands to help others identify familiar individuals and safe routes. Grooming also plays a role in strengthening social bonds. Chinchillas often groom themselves, but they may also gently nibble or clean the fur of others in their family unit. This mutual grooming removes loose fur and debris while also reinforcing trust and closeness. Young chinchillas learn much of their behavior by observing older members of the group, from how to find food to how to react to potential threats. Life in a group also means sharing resources. Food and gust baths must be used fairly, and when these resources are limited, chinchillas adjust their patterns to reduce competition. Some may feed at slightly different times, while others may use alternate dusting areas. These flexible habits help keep the colony peaceful and efficient. The social structure of wild chinchillas has been shaped by the challenges of living in high-altitude environments. Cooperation, communication, and the protection of the group have allowed them to survive where solitary animals might struggle. In the Andes, where weather can change quickly and predators are always a threat, living together is one of the chinchilla's most effective survival strategies. The ability to communicate clearly is essential for chinchillas living in social groups. Communication allows them to share warnings about danger, coordinate movements, and maintain peaceful relationships within the colony. Chinchillas use a combination of sounds, body language, and scent signals to send messages to one another, and each method serves a different purpose depending on the situation. Vocal communication is one of the most noticeable ways chinchillas interact. They produce a variety of sounds, from soft coos and gentle chirps to sharp squeaks and loud barks. A soft cooing sound can signal calmness or friendly intent, often exchanged between family members resting close together. High-pitched chirps are used during playful chases or as a way for young chinchillas to keep track of their parents. In contrast, a sudden loud squeak or bark is a sign of alarm, warning the group that a predator may be nearby. These alarm calls are short and urgent, prompting other chinchillas to freeze or rush into hiding. Each sound is distinct enough that other members of the colony quickly understand its meaning. Body language is another important part of their communication. Chinchillas may raise their fur slightly, arch their backs, or stand upright on their hind legs to make themselves look larger when facing a threat. A chinchilla that feels uncomfortable might lower its head, turn slightly away, or hop back to create distance without starting a fight. Playful body movements, such as quick hops or exaggerated runs, are often seen between young chinchillas and help strengthen social bonds. Tail flicks can also serve as signals, sometimes indicating curiosity or alertness. Scent communication adds a hidden layer to their interactions. Chinchillas have scent glands that they use to mark territory, pathways, or objects in their environment. These scent marks contain chemical signals that provide information about the individual who left them, such as their identity, age, and reproductive status. Scent marking is especially important at night or in low light when visual signals are harder to see. Other chinchillas can detect these scents and learn whether an area is part of their own group as territory or if another colony has been nearby. In situations involving courtship or mating, communication becomes even more precise. Males may use specific vocalizations and scent markings to attract females, while females may respond with their own sounds and body postures to signal readiness or disinterest. These subtle exchanges reduce the risk of conflict and help ensure that only compatible pairs interact closely. Young chinchillas learn the meanings of these signals by watching and listening to the adults around them. Over time, they become skilled at using the right type of communication for the right situation. This shared language of sounds, gestures, and scents allows the colony to act almost like a single, well-coordinated unit. In the unpredictable conditions of the Andes, such coordination can make the difference between safety and danger. The strong communication skills chinchillas use within their colonies also play an important role when they search for food. Being able to signal safety or warn of danger allows them to feed without constantly having to stop and check their surroundings. Feeding is a daily necessity, but in the sparse environment of the Andes, it requires careful timing and movement. Chinchillas do not feed randomly. They follow patterns that lead them to known food sources, often revisiting the same areas where edible plants are found. Their diet in the wild is made up mostly of vegetation that can survive in dry, rocky, and high-altitude conditions. This includes tough mountain grasses, the leaves and stems of shrubs, bits of bark, seeds, and occasionally moss or lichens. Because these plants often have low water content, chinchillas have adapted to extract as much moisture as possible from their food. Their digestive systems are designed to break down fibrous plant material efficiently, allowing them to get nutrition from plants that many other animals could not digest well. Chinchillas are selective feeders, taking small amounts from many plants rather than consuming a large quantity from a single source. This not only reduces the chance of exhausting a food patch, but also helps them get a variety of nutrients. They tend to feed during the cooler hours of early morning and evening, often moving in short bursts between feeding spots and pausing to watch for danger. This stop and go method keeps them alert and ready to flee if necessary. Water is scarce in their native environment, so chinchillas rely heavily on the moisture they obtain from plants. They rarely need to drink from open water sources, which may be far away or difficult to reach. Their bodies are highly efficient at conserving water, and they can survive long periods without drinking. As long as their food provides enough moisture, feeding can be both a solitary and a social activity. In safe conditions, several chinchillas may forage together, staying close enough to communicate but far enough apart to avoid direct competition over the same plant. If food is limited, individuals may spread out more widely, returning to the colony with full stomachs to rest and digest. The time spent feeding is balanced with other essential activities, such as dust bathing and grooming, which are often done during the same active periods. Seasonal changes in the Andes influence what food is available. During the summer months, when more plants are in bloom, chinchillas have a wider variety of food choices and may spend less time searching. In the colder, drier months, food is scarcer, and they must travel farther and feed for longer periods to meet their needs. Their ability to adjust their feeding habits to match the changing seasons is another reason they have been able to survive in such a challenging environment. Feeding in the open, even during the cooler hours, always carries the risk of encountering predators. For chinchillas, staying alive depends on balancing the need for food with the need to remain hidden and alert. Their entire lifestyle, from their choice of habitat to their daily activity patterns, is shaped by the presence of animals that would prey upon them. The rocky slopes and cliffs of the Andes provide natural hiding places that chinchillas use as the first line of defense. They rarely stray far from these shelters while foraging. If a predator appears, they can dart into crevices in an instant, using their small, flexible bodies to slip through narrow gaps where larger animals cannot follow. Their strong hind legs allow them to leap several feet in a single bound, which helps them navigate uneven terrain quickly when escaping danger. Chinchillas have several predators in the wild. Birds of prey such as hawks and eagles hunt from above, scanning the ground for movement. Owls can strike during the night, making the darkest hours particularly risky. On the ground, foxes, wildcats, and snakes pose a threat. Each type of predator requires a different kind of awareness. To avoid aerial hunters, chinchillas tend to stay close to cover and keep their movements short and quick. For ground-based predators, they rely on their agility and knowledge of the rocky landscape to escape. Their communication system is vital in detecting and avoiding threats. A sharp alarm call from one member of the colony can cause all nearby chinchillas to freeze instantly, blending into the rocks until the danger passes. If the threat is too close, the alarm call triggers a rapid retreat into their dens. The speed and coordination of this response leave predators with little chance to catch them. Camouflage also plays a role in their survival. The soft, dense fur of a chinchilla is often gray or bluish-gray in the wild, blending in with the stone and shadow of their mountainous surroundings. This makes it harder for predators to spot them, especially when they remain still. Their fur color is a natural advantage that works together with their cautious behavior to keep them safe. Even while resting during the day, chinchillas are rarely completely relaxed. Their large ears can detect faint sounds, and they often position themselves so they can quickly retreat deeper into their dens if needed. This constant readiness may seem exhausting, but It is an essential part of surviving in a place where danger can appear suddenly. Predator avoidance is not just a matter of individual survival. Because chinchillas live in groups, one alert animal can protect many others. The success of the colony depends on each member remaining watchful and reacting quickly to warning signals. This shared responsibility ensures that despite living in an environment full of threats, chinchillas have a better chance of surviving and continuing their daily lives. The survival skills chinchillas use to avoid predators are only one part of their place in the larger environment. Every species has a role in the ecosystem it lives in, and chinchillas are no exception. They are both consumers of plants and prey for other animals, which means they form an important link in the food chain of the high Andes. As herbivores, chinchillas help control the growth of certain plants. By feeding on grasses, leaves, and small shrubs, they prevent any single plant species from becoming too dominant. This keeps the vegetation balanced, which allows a wider variety of plants to thrive. In turn, this balance supports other herbivores that share their habitat. Chinchillas also contribute to seed dispersal. When they eat fruits or seeds and later travel across the rocky slopes, they may leave behind seeds in their droppings, helping plants grow in new places. Even the simple act of moving from one feeding area to another can loosen soil and allow new vegetation to take root. Chinchillas are also an important food source for many predators. Birds of prey, foxes, and wild cats rely on them as a part of their diet. If chinchilla populations were to disappear, these predators would have to turn to other animals for food, which could create imbalances in the ecosystem. The presence of chinchillas helps keep predator populations stable and reduces hunting pressure on other species. Their role extends beyond direct feeding relationships. By using dust baths to clean their fur, chinchillas create small disturbed patches of ground that can be used by insects and other small creatures. Their burrows and dens, once abandoned, may be taken over by other animals seeking shelter. These small changes add up over time, subtly shaping the landscape around them. Chinchillas have lived in the Andes for thousands of years, adapting to its unique conditions and becoming an integral part of its ecological network. Protecting them not only safeguards the species itself, but also helps maintain the balance of life in this fragile mountain environment. The loss of such a species would create ripples through the ecosystem, affecting plants, predators, and other animals that depend on the same habitat. Because chinchillas are a key prey species in the Andes, several predators rely on them as a regular food source. These predators include both those that hunt from the air and those that stalk from the ground, each using strategies suited to the rugged mountain terrain. The variety of predators ensures that chinchillas must remain constantly alert, even in what might seem like safe moments. From the air, large birds of prey are among the most significant threats. Andean foxes and wildcats must approach on foot, but raptors can spot a chinchilla from a great distance and swoop down in seconds. Hawks and eagles are the most common daytime aerial hunters, using their sharp eyesight to detect movement among rocks and sparse vegetation. Owls, hunting under the cover of night, are a danger during the chinchilla's active hours in the late evening and early morning. These birds attack silently, giving chinchillas only a brief moment to react before the strike. On the ground, the Andean fox is one of the most persistent hunters of chinchillas. With a strong sense of smell and the ability to navigate rocky slopes with ease, It can follow a chinchilla's scent trail back to its colony. Wildcats, such as the Andean mountain cat, also pose a significant threat. These cats are agile climbers and capable of stalking chinchillas through steep terrain, waiting for the right moment to pounce. Snakes, while less common, can ambush chinchillas near burrow entrances or basking spots. Each predator's hunting style influences how chinchillas behave. Aerial predators encourage chinchillas to keep close to cover and limit the time they spend in open areas. Ground-based predators push them to build colonies in places with multiple escape routes, such as cliffsides with many crevices. Over generations, these threats have shaped the chinchilla's quick reflexes, excellent hearing, and strong leaping ability. The balance between predator and prey is an essential part of the ecosystem. Predators help keep chinchilla populations from growing too large, which ensures that vegetation is not overgrazed. At the same time, healthy chinchilla populations support the survival of these predators, many of which have few other reliable prey sources in such a harsh environment. This balance has existed for centuries, with both chinchillas and their predators adapting to one another in a constant cycle of survival, while predators are a constant danger to chinchillas. Survival in the Andes also depends on how well they can compete for the limited resources their habitat provides. Food, water, and shelter are not unlimited in the high mountain environment, and several other species rely on the same sources. This competition can be just as challenging as avoiding predators, especially during times of scarcity. Many other herbivores share the chinchilla's diet of grasses, shrubs, and hardy mountain plants. Small rodents, such as viscachas, often forage in the same areas, consuming similar types of vegetation. Larger grazing animals, like wild camelids such as guanacos, may feed on the same patches of grass, reducing the amount available to smaller animals. Even insects can have an impact, stripping leaves and seeds that chinchillas might otherwise eat. When plant growth slows in colder or drier months, the competition for edible plants becomes more intense, forcing chinchillas to travel farther from their colony to find enough food. Shelter is another resource that can be contested. The rocky slopes and cliff faces that chinchillas prefer are also home to other animals, seeking protection from predators and harsh weather. Lizards, small birds, and even other rodents may occupy crevices and burrows that chinchillas would otherwise use. In some cases, these spaces are abandoned and reused by different species over time. But in other situations, animals may directly compete for the same shelter. Chinchillas avoid direct conflict when possible, but limited safe hiding places can make this competition unavoidable. Water is scarce in the chinchilla's native environment, and while they can survive with little direct drinking, occasional moisture from streams, snowmelt, or rainwater is still valuable. Other wildlife also seeks out these rare water sources, and larger or more aggressive species may dominate them, leaving chinchillas to rely almost entirely on the water content of the plants they eat. This ongoing competition shapes the daily lives of chinchillas just as much as predation does. It influences where they choose to forage, how far they travel, and how closely they stay to one another while feeding. By adapting to these pressures, feeding on a variety of plants, making efficient use of moisture in their food, and staying close to multiple shelter options, they are able to survive alongside many other species in the same environment. The ability to balance these challenges is what has allowed chinchillas to remain a part of the Andean ecosystem for thousands of years. They occupy a position where they are both competitors and contributors, sharing resources with other animals while still maintaining the delicate balance needed for their own survival. For most of their long history in the Andes Mountains, chinchillas lived with contact from humans. Their home was in remote, high-altitude regions where the thin air, cold temperatures, and rugged slope kept people from settling in large numbers. For thousands of years, chinchillas were simply one of many small mammals sharing the rocky grasslands, interacting mainly with other wildlife in the changing mountain seasons. Their secretive nature, combined with the difficulty of reaching their colonies, meant they remained largely unknown to humans beyond the communities living nearest to them. The earliest recorded interactions between humans and chinchillas come from the indigenous peoples of the Andes, who developed a deep understanding of the mountain environment. These communities eventually discovered that chinchillas possessed one of the softest furs in the animal kingdom. The fine, dense fur, which could contain more than 50 hairs growing from a single follicle, offered exceptional insulation against the biting winds and icy temperatures of the high Andes. Indigenous hunters valued this fur not just for its warmth, but also for its durability. Garments made from chinchilla pelts were rare, and often considered a sign of skill in hunting or craftsmanship. In these early times, human use of chinchillas was limited. Hunting was often done by hand or with simple traps, and the numbers taken were small. Both because of the effort required to catch them and because of the natural respect many indigenous cultures had for the balance of the environment. In some cases, fur may have been collected from animals that died naturally or from seasonal shedding. As a result, chinchilla populations remained healthy for generations, and there was no widespread decline caused by human activity. This situation began to change with the arrival of Spanish colonists in the 16th century. Europeans were immediately struck by the extraordinary softness and quality of chinchilla fur, which was unlike anything found in Europe. While the fur was already valued locally, the colonial presence connected the Andes to global trade networks. This meant that chinchilla pelts could be transported across oceans to markets in Europe and later North America. Once the fur reached foreign cities, it quickly became a luxury item, favored by the wealthy and used in coats, stoles, and other garments that required many pelts to produce. What had once been small-scale hunting for local use grew into organized, large-scale trapping aimed at international export. Hunters began to enter remote chinchilla habitats more frequently, and the pressure on wild populations increased sharply. The once remote colonies that had remained hidden for centuries were now being discovered and harvested at a rate the species could not sustain. While indigenous peoples had traditionally hunted with moderation, commercial fur traders were motivated by profit and often took as many animals as possible without concern for long-term effects. By the 19th century, the fur trade had become one of the defining aspects of human interaction with chinchillas. Expeditions were organized to locate colonies deep in the mountains, and new trapping methods made it easier to capture large numbers quickly. As demand for fur garments continued to grow, the hunting pressure pushed chinchilla populations into steep decline. This period marked a turning point in their history, as their relationship with humans shifted from one of occasional contact to one of intense exploitation. This early history is essential for understanding the modern story of chinchillas. It explains why the species went from being an abundant mountain rodent to a rare and protected animal within a few centuries. The path from respectful coexistence to overexploitation set the stage for later conservation efforts and shaped how chinchillas would continue to interact with humans in the years to come. The story of the chinchilla fur trade is one of the most significant chapters in the species' history, and one of the main reasons their populations changed so drastically in a relatively short time. By the late 18th century, the interest in chinchilla pelts had grown far beyond the boundaries of South America. While indigenous communities had hunted chinchillas for centuries in small numbers, the arrival of large-scale commercial trade altered everything. The fur was now being exported across continents, carried by ships to Europe and later to North America, where it became a luxury material in fashion. Chinchilla fur was unlike anything else on the global market. Each hair was incredibly fine, soft, and silky, giving the pelts a unique texture and sheen that appealed to wealthy buyers. The fur has exceptional density, up to 50 to 70 hairs growing from a single follicle meant that it was also extremely warm while remaining light in weight. These qualities made it highly sought after for winter garments, especially coats, stoles, wraps, and trim. However, producing such items required many individual pelts. A single chinchilla's body yielded only a small amount of usable fur, so it could take more than 100 animals to make a single full-length coat. This high requirement for raw material drove an enormous demand that fueled increasingly aggressive hunting. By the mid-19th century, organized trapping expeditions were traveling deep into the mountains to locate the densest chinchilla colonies. Skilled trappers, often working in teams, used snares, baited traps, and even hand capture to take as many animals as possible in a short time. Because the pelts were more valuable when the fur was in perfect condition, hunting was most intense during the colder months when the chinchilla's coat was thickest. Unlike subsistence hunting, which removed only a small percentage of the population, commercial fur harvesting targeted entire colonies. In some cases, trappers would clear out all the animals in a single area before moving on to the next. This practice left no time for populations to recover, especially because chinchillas reproduce slowly compared to many other rodents. A healthy wild chinchilla may only have 1 or 2 litters per year, with each litter containing an average of 2 kits. This low reproductive rate meant that the loss of hundreds or thousands of animals in a short time could not be replaced for decades, if at all. The geography of the Andes made the trade logistically challenging, but also more destructive. Trappers had to travel by foot or unpack animals across steep and rocky terrain, which meant they targeted the most accessible colonies first. Once those populations were depleted, they pushed further into previously untouched high-altitude regions. The more remote the colony, the less likely it had encountered humans before, making the animals less wary and easier to catch. As the most isolated colonies were discovered, their numbers too began to fall. By the late 1800s, international demand for chinchilla fur had reached unprecedented levels. Pelts were sold in major fashion centers such as Paris, London, and New York, often commanding extremely high prices. Wealthy buyers viewed garments made from chinchilla fur as symbols of status and elegance, further driving the market. Traders and middlemen in South America made large profits by supplying this demand, while local hunters were paid for each pelt they could deliver, giving them a strong incentive to take as many animals as possible, regardless of long-term consequences. By the turn of the 20th century, the effects of decades of unregulated hunting were becoming clear. Entire regions where chinchillas had once been abundant were now silent. Their rocky slopes empty of the small rustling movements and quick leaps that had once been common. Early naturalists began to note the decline, but warnings often went unheeded, as the economic profits from the fur trade were considered more important than protecting the species. The industry was at its height, but so too was the damage it was causing, a collision between human desire for luxury and the survival of a unique mountain animal. By the early decades of the 20th century, the relentless hunting of chinchillas for their fur had pushed the species to the edge of extinction in the wild. Trapping had continued at such an intense pace that even the most remote colonies were being discovered and harvested. In many areas, chinchillas had disappeared entirely, and hunters were forced to travel farther and climb higher into the mountains to find a few remaining groups. Reports from traders and local communities during this time described once thriving slopes now devoid of the quick, darting shapes that had been so common only a few generations earlier. This was the period when the fur industry reached its most destructive peak. International markets still demanded chinchilla garments, and the high prices for pelts encouraged continued trapping despite dwindling numbers. Many traders treated chinchilla hunting as a race against time, fearing that the animals would vanish completely, but also determined to gather as many pelts as possible before that happened. The economic pull was so strong that even as populations collapsed, there was little incentive for restraint. Early conservation voices did begin to emerge during this crisis. Naturalists, explorers, and some government officials in South America started to warn that chinchillas could be lost forever if the hunting continued unchecked. These concerns eventually led to the first protective laws. In 1910, Chile passed legislation making it illegal to hunt chinchillas in the wild. Peru followed with its own restrictions in the years afterward, and Bolivia eventually implemented similar measures. However, the effectiveness of these laws was limited at first. The mountainous terrain made enforcement difficult, and illegal hunting continued, often in secret. Traders smuggled pelts across borders to avoid detection, keeping the market supplied despite the new restrictions. While wild populations continued to decline, another development was beginning to change the industry: chinchilla farming. In the 1920s, efforts were made to capture and breed chinchillas in captivity for fur production. This idea was most famously pursued by Matthias F. Chapman, an American mining engineer working in Chile, who obtained a small group of live chinchillas with government permission and transported them to the United States. These animals became the foundation for most of the domestic chinchilla populations in captivity today. Breeding chinchillas in controlled environments allowed the fur trade to continue without directly taking animals from the wild. Although the initial removal of breeding stock further reduced already fragile wild populations. As captive breeding operations expanded, the availability of farm-raised pelts began to lessen the pressure on their remaining wild chinchillas. By the mid-20th century, the fur industry was supplied largely through farms in North America, Europe, and Asia. This shift, combined with stronger enforcement of hunting bans in South America, gave wild populations a chance, though a very limited one, to stabilize. In some places, tiny remnants of colonies persisted in isolated, hard-to-reach areas. Even so, the scars of the fur trade were permanent. What had once been a species spread widely through the Andes was now confined to scattered pockets, many of which were vulnerable to habitat changes and climate pressures. The chinchilla as near eradication in the wild became a cautionary example of how unchecked human exploitation could push a species to the brink in just a few generations. Today, while chinchillas are still farmed for fur in some parts of the world, the wild species is protected by strict international laws and trade, and wild-caught pelt is banned under the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. The fur trade not only altered the course of chinchilla history, but also left a lasting mark on human attitudes toward wildlife conservation. The near disappearance of chinchillas from their native mountains became one of the early examples used by conservationists to argue for global protections and sustainable practices. It is a reminder that once a species is depleted, recovery is slow and uncertain, and no amount of economic profit can replace what is lost when a wild population collapses. As the fur trade began to decline in its impact on wild chinchilla populations due to legal restrictions and the growth of captive breeding, the species found a new and unexpected role in human history, one centered not on fashion or commerce, but on knowledge and discovery. Scientists had been aware of chinchillas for centuries, but for much of that time, they were studied mainly in the context of their fur and behavior in the wild. It was not until the 20th century that chinchillas became subjects of more structured scientific research. This shift marked the beginning of their role as valuable contributors to studies in biology, medicine, and even technology. One of the most important scientific uses of chinchillas came from their highly specialized hearing. In their native Andes, chinchillas rely on sharp hearing to detect predators across rocky landscapes where sound travels differently than in flat terrain. Their ears are not only sensitive, but also structurally similar in many ways to the human ear. This similarity made chinchillas particularly useful in auditory research, especially in the study of hearing disorders, sound perception, and the effects of noise exposure. Because their hearing range overlaps with that of humans more closely than most other small mammals, chinchillas provided researchers with more accurate models for understanding human auditory health. In laboratory settings, chinchillas were used to study the causes and treatment of hearing loss, including damage caused by loud sounds, infections, and genetic conditions. Detailed studies on their cochlea, the spiral-shaped organ in the inner ear, helped scientists better understand how sound waves are transformed into electrical signals sent to the brain. These studies had far-reaching benefits, influencing not only medical treatments for people with hearing impairments, but also the development of better hearing aids and cochlear implants. Beyond hearing research, chinchillas also became important in the study of infectious diseases, particularly those that affect the respiratory system. Their small size made them practical for laboratory work, while their physiology allowed researchers to test how certain pathogens behaved in mammals. For example, studies on chinchillas contributed to the understanding of infections and sinus problems, leading to improvements in treatments for these common health issues in humans. The animal's susceptibility to specific bacteria made them an effective model for testing antibiotics and other medical therapies before they were applied to human patients. In addition to biomedical research, chinchillas also found a role in educational settings. Universities and research institutions often kept chinchillas to help train students in veterinary medicine, zoology, and animal care. By working with these animals, students could learn about small mammal anatomy, behavior, and health management without harming wild populations. This educational use not only trained future scientists, but also helped shift public perception of chinchillas away from their former role as mere sources of luxury fur. However, this new chapter in the species' history was not without its ethical questions. The use of chinchillas in research raised debates about animal welfare, particularly in cases where experiments caused discomfort or harm. Over time, stricter ethical guidelines and oversight committees were put in place to ensure that chinchillas used in research were treated humanely, housed in appropriate conditions, and only used when necessary. The introduction of these protections reflected a broader change in how humans valued animals, recognizing them not just as tools for study, but as living creatures deserving of respect and care. The growing body of knowledge gained from chinchilla-based research extended well beyond biology and medicine. In some cases, findings from chinchilla studies influenced fields as diverse as acoustics engineering and environmental science. Their finely tuned senses and unique physiology offered insights into how living systems adapt to challenging environments, which in turn helped scientists think about human adaptation, technology design, and conservation strategies. By the middle of the 20th century, the chinchilla's image in human society was undergoing a quiet but profound transformation. Where they had once been seen primarily as sources of profit through the fur trade, they were now also seen as partners in discovery. The next stage of this relationship would see them contribute even more significantly to scientific advancement, especially as new research methods opened opportunities to study their biology in greater detail. In the late 20th and early 21st centuries, chinchillas remained valuable in scientific research, but their role began to evolve as technology and ethics advanced. Improvements in non-invasive imaging methods, such as magnetic resonance imaging and advanced microscopy, allowed scientists to study chinchilla anatomy and physiology without causing harm. This shift meant that researchers could gather highly detailed information about their bodies while preserving the health and well-being of the animals. These advances also allowed scientists to observe live processes, such as how the inner ear responds to sound in real time without requiring invasive procedures. Chinchillas continued to be at the forefront of auditory research, especially in studies that sought to understand how noise exposure damages the delicate hair cells of the inner ear. Unlike humans, chinchillas do not have the ability to regenerate these cells once they are lost, making them an ideal model for human hearing loss studies. Research involving chinchillas helped identify how different sound frequencies cause varying degrees of damage. Information that has guided modern noise safety standards in workplaces and public spaces. Some studies even use chinchilla data to refine treatments aimed at protecting the ear from damage before exposure to loud noise occurs. Their contribution extended into medical device development, cochlear implant technology, which restores a sense of hearing to individuals with profound deafness, benefited from decades of chinchilla research. By understanding exactly how sound is processed in their auditory pathways, engineers could design devices that more closely mimic natural hearing patterns. This has improved sound clarity and speech recognition for implant users, directly impacting the quality of life for thousands of people worldwide. In addition to hearing-related breakthroughs, chinchillas have contributed to studies in neurology and sensory processing. Their relatively large brains compared to body size, along with their highly developed senses, make them useful in understanding how animals interpret environmental signals. Research has explored how chinchillas navigate complex spaces, detect predators through subtle changes in sound, and adapt their behavior to seasonal changes in their mountainous environments. Such studies have implications beyond chinchillas themselves, providing insight into the evolution of mammalian sensory systems. Ethical considerations have become central to the modern use of chinchillas in research. Strict international guidelines now govern how and when animals can be used for scientific purposes. In many countries, researchers must prove that their work cannot be conducted using computer models, cell cultures, or other alternative methods before they are allowed to involve live animals. Housing standards have also improved, requiring adequate space, environmental enrichment, and social opportunities for chinchillas used in studies. These changes reflect a growing understanding that even small mammals experience stress, comfort, and well-being in complex ways. Conservation laws have also influenced the availability and use of chinchillas in science. Since wild chinchillas are protected and their capture is banned under international agreements, all research animals today come from regulated breeding programs. This ensures that studies do not contribute to the decline of already vulnerable wild populations. In many cases, breeding programs also share genetic data with conservationists, which has the added benefit of supporting species survival efforts in the wild. Modern chinchilla research often overlaps with conservation science itself. For example, studying chinchilla dietary needs, disease resistance, and reproductive patterns in captivity has provided information that can help restore wild populations. Wildlife biologists use this knowledge to design habitation plans, establish breeding protocols for reintroduction programs, and monitor the health of wild colonies. In this way, the chinchilla's role in science now supports both human technological advancement and the survival of its own species. Perhaps the most significant change in recent decades is the way chinchillas are perceived by the scientific community and the public. They are no longer just experimental subjects, but are often seen as partners in discovery, whose contributions deserve respect and careful stewardship. Their journey from hunted fur-bearing animals to valued research collaborators illustrates a broader shift in human relationships with wildlife, one that balances curiosity and benefit with responsibility and care. As the role of chinchillas in science began to shift toward more ethical and conservation-minded practices, their presence in human life expanded in another direction. No longer seen only as research subjects or historical sources of fur, chinchillas gradually entered homes as cherished companion animals. This transformation was influenced by several factors, including stricter wildlife protection laws, the establishment of regulated breeding programs, and the growing awareness of chinchilla's unique personalities and gentle nature. The earliest chinchillas kept as pets were often descendants of animals that had been bred in captivity for fur production. In the mid 20th century, as fur farming in some regions began to decline, certain breeders recognized that these animals had qualities that could make them well suited for life as domestic companions. Their small size, exceptionally soft fur, expressive faces, and curious behavior quickly caught the attention of exotic pet enthusiasts. Over time, selective breeding focused less on pelt quality and more on health, temperament, and adaptability to life with humans. Chinchillas differ greatly from traditional pets like dogs and cats. They are not domesticated in the same way, meaning that many of their instincts from life in the wild remain intact. They are alert, quick-moving, and often more cautious around unfamiliar people or environments. This gives them a certain mystique for those who keep them as pets, as their trust must be earned gradually. When handled gently and consistently, chinchillas can develop strong bonds with their owners, responding to familiar voices and showing recognition in subtle but clear ways. Their physical characteristics make them appealing to many people. Chinchillas have large, dark eyes, long whiskers, and rounded ears that give them a highly expressive look. Their fur is unlike that of any other pet, with each follicle producing more than 50 fine hairs, creating a dense, velvety coat. This texture is not just beautiful to look at, but also serves a biological purpose, insulating them in their native cold, dry habitats. For owners, this unique fur is part of the charm, although it also comes with the responsibility of providing dust baths to keep it clean and healthy. Part of the attraction of chinchillas as pets lies in their playful and active personalities. In the right environment, they are curious explorers, often bouncing from one perch to another with remarkable agility. Their nocturnal or crepuscular nature, being most active in the evening and early morning, means they can fit well into the schedules of owners who work or attend school during the day. However, this same trait can be surprising to first-time owners who may not realize that chinchillas prefer a quiet, dimly lit environment during daylight hours. The decision to keep a chinchilla as a pet requires understanding that they are long-lived for small mammals, often reaching lifespans of 10 to 15 years in captivity, and in some cases living even longer with excellent care. This means that owning one is a commitment that spans many years, during which the animal's needs must remain a priority. Unlike short-lived rodents such as hamsters or gerbils, chinchillas require sustained dedication, making them a choice best suited for people ready to commit to their long-term care. While their gentle appearance and soft coats often draw people in, chinchillas are not the right pet for everyone. They require specific environmental conditions to thrive, and their fragility means they do not tolerate rough handling. They are generally not considered suitable for very young children, as sudden movements or loud noises can cause stress. For patient, attentive owners who are willing to learn and adapt, however, chinchillas can be rewarding companions, offering a mix of lively energy and quiet moments of connection. The introduction of chinchillas into the pet world represents a significant shift in their history with humans. It marks a transition from animals, once known primarily for their fur, to beings valued for their companionship and individuality. This change has helped shape the modern perception of chinchillas, not as resources to be exploited, but as living creatures deserving of respect, care, and understanding. As the next section will explore, Keeping a chinchilla as a pet is both a privilege and a responsibility, requiring knowledge, preparation, and an appreciation for the unique needs of this remarkable species. Understanding how to care for a chinchilla in captivity is essential for anyone considering bringing one into their home. Chinchillas may be small, but their needs are complex, and providing the right environment is the foundation of their well-being. Unlike some pets that can adapt to a variety of living conditions, chinchillas have specific requirements that must be met for them to remain healthy and happy. The first and most important consideration is housing. Chinchillas need spacious cages with multiple levels so they can climb, jump, and explore. A cage with solid flooring is better than wire flooring, as the latter can injure their delicate feet. The enclosure should be placed in a quiet area of the home, away from direct sunlight, drafts, and sources of loud noise. Temperature is especially critical because chinchillas are highly sensitive to heat. They thrive best in cool, dry environments between 60 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit. And temperatures above 75 degrees can quickly cause overheating, which may be fatal. Proper ventilation is important, but the cage must be protected from sudden temperature changes. Inside their living space, chinchillas require a variety of structures to satisfy their natural instincts. Platforms at different heights encourage movement and exercise, while wooden houses or hideouts offer safe places to rest and feel secure. Chew toys made from safe materials, such as untreated wood or pumice stone, are essential because chinchillas' teeth grow continuously throughout their lives. Without proper chewing opportunities, their teeth can overgrow and cause serious health issues. One of the most distinctive aspects of chinchilla care is hygiene. Unlike many animals, chinchillas cannot bathe in water because their dense fur traps moisture, which can lead to fungal infections or skin problems. Instead, they maintain their coats through regular dust baths. This involves rolling in fine volcanic dust that absorbs oils and removes dirt. A dust bath should be offered several times a week in a container large enough for the chinchilla to roll around freely. The dust must be kept clean and replaced regularly to ensure it remains effective. Diet is another critical factor in chinchilla care. In the wild, they eat grasses, leaves, and other fibrous plant materials. In captivity, they require a similar diet based on high-quality hay, such as timothy or orchard grass, which should be available at all times. Commercial chinchilla pellets can provide balanced nutrition, but treats should be given sparingly. Fruits, nuts, and sugary snacks can cause digestive problems, so they must be limited or avoided entirely. Fresh water should always be accessible, preferably from a sipper bottle that keeps it clean and prevents spillage. Exercise and mental stimulation are vital for preventing boredom and stress. Chinchillas are naturally active and benefit from supervised playtime outside of their cage in a safe, enclosed area. They enjoy climbing, jumping, and exploring new surroundings, but they must be protected from hazards such as electrical cords, sharp edges, or small objects that could be chewed or swallowed. Rotating toys and rearranging cage accessories can keep their environment interesting and engaging. Social needs vary among chinchillas. Some thrive in pairs or small groups, especially if raised together from a young age, while others prefer to live alone. Introducing new chinchillas requires patience and careful supervision to prevent fighting. For owners, daily interaction helps strengthen the bond with their pet, although chinchillas may never enjoy prolonged handling in the way some other animals do. They tend to prefer short, gentle contact on their own terms, and forcing interaction can lead to stress. Daily care also involves regular observation to monitor health. Signs of illness can be subtle in chinchillas, so changes in appetite, activity level, or behavior should be taken seriously. Veterinary care from professionals experienced with exotic animals is important, as chinchillas have specific health needs that not all veterinarians are trained to address. Life with a chinchilla can be highly rewarding, but it demands consistency, patience, and attention to detail. A well-cared for chinchilla will display lively behavior, glossy fur, and bright eyes, and may even greet its owner with soft chirps or curious stares. By meeting their physical and emotional needs, owners can ensure that their chinchilla not only survives in captivity, but thrives, living a life that respects the animal's natural instincts while fostering a unique human-animal connection. Keeping chinchillas as pets is not simply a matter of providing food, water, and shelter. It is also a question of responsibility, respect, and long-term commitment. Chinchillas can live for 10 to 20 years in captivity, which means owning one is not a short-term decision. For many young owners, this lifespan extends through their entire childhood and into adulthood, requiring years of consistent care. This longevity is one reason why the decision to adopt a chinchilla should be taken seriously, with a full understanding of the responsibility it carries. One of the most important ethical considerations is where the chinchilla comes from. The history of the species shows that wild populations suffered greatly due to overhunting for the fur trade. Today, nearly all pet chinchillas come from captive breeding programs rather than the wild. Even so, not all breeders operate responsibly. Reputable breeders focus on the health, temperament, and genetic diversity of their animals, ensuring that they are well cared for before being sold. In contrast, unethical breeders may keep chinchillas in overcrowded conditions, neglect veterinary care, or breed animals with poor genetic health, leading to suffering and disease. For prospective owners, researching and choosing a trustworthy source is one of the most impactful steps they can take to ensure the welfare of the species. Another challenge is meeting the chinchilla's complex needs over many years. While the daily care routine may seem simple, life circumstances can change, making it harder for some owners to provide proper attention. A chinchilla that is ignored, housed in a small cage, or fed an improper diet can quickly develop health and behavioral problems. In severe cases, neglected chinchillas may be surrendered to animal shelters or rescue organizations. These situations highlight the importance of responsible ownership, including planning for the animal's care during travel, illness, or other life changes. Understanding the animal's natural instincts is also essential to maintaining a healthy relationship. Chinchillas are prey animals, and their cautious nature means they may never be as openly affectionate as a dog or cat. Some owners expect constant cuddling or playful interaction, only to become disappointed when their chinchilla prefers short periods of contact or independent activity. Respecting the animal's boundaries and recognizing signs of stress, such as fur slipping or defensive postures, is a key part of ethical pet care. The human-chinchilla relationship is also shaped by conservation awareness. Owning a chinchilla can inspire interest in the species' history, habitat, and ongoing challenges in the wild. Educated owners often become advocates for chinchilla welfare, supporting conservation projects, or spreading awareness about the importance of protecting their natural environment. This connection can turn pet ownership into a form of informal conservation, bridging the gap between individual care and species survival. There are also broader questions about whether exotic animals should be kept as pets at all. While chinchillas bred in captivity may never survive in the wild, their specialized needs and natural behaviors raise concerns about whether they can truly thrive in a domestic setting. Many experts argue that keeping such animals requires a higher standard of care than more common pets, and that education is the best way to ensure this standard is met. For those willing to put in the effort, the reward is a strong, respectful bond with a fascinating animal. For those unprepared for the challenges, the result can be stress for both the pet and the owner. In the end, the human-chinchilla relationship is built on mutual respect. When owners commit to meeting their chinchilla's needs, understanding its instincts, and caring for it throughout its long life, they create a home where the animal can live in comfort and security. This relationship, though different from that with more familiar pets, offers its own unique rewards: a quiet companionship, moments of curiosity and play, and the knowledge that one is providing a safe and enriching life for an animal with a remarkable history. The survival of wild chinchillas has been shaped by centuries of human activity and environmental change. Once abundant across much of the Andes, both short-tailed and long-tailed chinchillas are now restricted to only a few remote areas in Chile. The most significant historical threat came from overhunting for the fur trade, which reduced wild populations to critically low numbers by the early 20th century. Although commercial hunting is now banned, the effects of this near extinction event continue to limit genetic diversity and recovery speed. Today, the most pressing threats to wild chinchillas come from habitat loss and degradation. Expanding human settlements, mining operations, and agriculture have led to the destruction and fragmentation of their native rocky slopes and shrublands. These activities remove the plants they depend on for food and reduce the number of safe hiding places from predators. Roads and infrastructure development can divide populations into isolated groups, making it harder for them to find mates and maintain healthy breeding levels. Climate change adds another layer of difficulty. Shifts in temperature and rainfall patterns may affect the growth of native vegetation, altering food availability and forcing chinchillas to adapt to changing conditions. Warmer temperatures could also increase the range and activity of predators or competitors, creating additional pressures. Illegal hunting remains a concern, though it is far less widespread than in the past. Some chinchillas are still targeted for their fur or captured for the exotic pet trade, despite strict laws against these practices. Because wild populations are already small and scattered, the removal of even a few individuals can have serious consequences for local groups. The combination of these threats means that wild chinchillas continue to face an uncertain future. Their survival depends on not only reducing direct human pressures, but also ensuring that the landscapes they inhabit remain intact and capable of supporting their needs. This has led to the creation of protected areas and legal measures aimed at safeguarding what remains of their natural range. In response to the severe decline of chinchillas in the wild, governments and conservation organizations have taken Steps to protect the species through the creation of legal protections and designated reserves. These measures aim to safeguard the remaining populations from further harm and to give the species a chance to recover. Chile, the country where the last wild chinchillas survived, has played the most important role in establishing protected areas. One of the most significant is the Reserva Nacional Las Chinchillas, created in 1983 in the Coquimbo region of northern Chile. This reserve covers several thousand hectares of rocky hillsides and scrubland, providing a safe habitat for long-tailed chinchillas and protecting them from hunting and habitat destruction. Researchers regularly monitor populations within the reserve, studying their behavior, reproduction, and movement to better understand what is needed to support their survival. Beyond national reserves, smaller protected zones have also been established in other parts of Chile, where remnant populations persist. These areas provide crucial refuges, though the challenge remains that many wild chinchillas live outside the boundaries of protected land. In those regions, they remain vulnerable to mining, agriculture, and other forms of human development that continue to reduce their habitat. Legal protections have also been introduced at both national and international levels. Chinchillas are listed under the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. This agreement prohibits the international trade of wild chinchillas or their pelts, closing off the markets that once drove the species toward extinction. Within Chile, national laws forbid the hunting, capture, or trade of wild chinchillas, making such activities punishable by fines and legal penalties. These laws are important, but enforcement can be difficult, especially in remote mountainous areas where illegal activity may go unnoticed. Conservationists emphasize the need for continued vigilance, regular monitoring, and cooperation between local communities and government agencies to ensure that the rules are followed. Protected areas and legal measures represent the foundation of chinchilla conservation. By creating safe zones and banning harmful trade, these efforts have prevented the species from disappearing entirely. Yet laws and reserves alone are not enough. For chinchillas to thrive once more, active conservation programs are needed to rebuild populations and restore habitats. While protected areas and legal restrictions provide a foundation for chinchilla survival, active conservation programs are critical for increasing population numbers and ensuring long-term stability. These programs combine scientific research, habitat restoration, captive breeding, and education to give the species a fighting chance in the wild. Captive breeding programs have been one of the most effective tools for conserving chinchillas. By carefully managing genetic diversity, these programs maintain healthy populations that can serve as a safeguard against extinction. Some programs focus on breeding individuals for eventual reintroduction into protected habitats, while others maintain populations in zoos and research facilities to study behavior, reproduction, and disease prevention. By observing these captive populations, scientists gain valuable insight into how wild chinchillas live, what they need to thrive, and how environmental changes affect their survival. Habitat restoration is another key element of conservation efforts. Conservationists work to repair areas that have been damaged by mining, agriculture, or development, planting native vegetation and creating structures that provide shelter and safety for chinchillas. These projects often involve local communities, encouraging people to take part in preserving the natural landscape. When residents understand the value of chinchillas and their environment, they are more likely to support protection measures and report illegal activity, creating a positive feedback loop for conservation. Education and outreach programs also play an essential role. Schools, community centers, and environmental organizations teach people about the history of chinchillas, the threats they face, and the steps needed to protect them. These programs highlight the importance of ethical pet ownership, the dangers of illegal trade, and the significance of habitat preservation. By raising awareness, conservationists hope to foster a generation that values wild chinchillas and supports their continued survival. Research is closely tied to these conservation efforts. Scientists track wild populations using methods like camera traps, radio collars, and population surveys to monitor movement patterns and health. This data informs management decisions, helping identify areas that need extra protection, detecting disease outbreaks, and measuring the success of reintroduction programs. Conservation programs often operate in collaboration with international organizations, national governments, and local communities. The coordinated efforts help ensure that actions taken in one area support those in another, creating a network of protection across the chinchilla's remaining range. These programs have already prevented the extinction of wild chinchillas, demonstrating that focused, informed efforts can make a tangible difference even for species that once teetered on the brink. The future of wild chinchillas depends on the combined success of conservation programs, legal protections, habitat preservation, and public awareness. Although the species has survived against incredible odds, it remains fragile, and its continued existence requires ongoing effort and vigilance. Scientists and conservationists emphasize that even small changes in habitat, climate, or human activity can have a dramatic impact on these already limited populations. One of the most important goals for the future is expanding and connecting protected areas. Many wild chinchilla populations remain isolated in small pockets of habitat, which can limit genetic diversity and reduce the species' ability to adapt to changing conditions. By creating wildlife corridors and linking reserves, conservationists hope to allow chinchillas to move safely between areas, find mates, and access diverse food sources. These connections can also make populations more resilient to natural disasters, disease outbreaks, and climate fluctuations. Ongoing research will continue to guide conservation strategies. By monitoring populations, studying reproductive behavior, and analyzing genetic health, scientists can identify threats before they become critical. Advances in technology, such as satellite mapping, drones, and non-invasive DNA sampling, offer new ways to track chinchilla populations and understand how they interact with their environment. This knowledge will be essential for making informed decisions about habitat management, reintroduction programs, and community involvement. Community engagement will remain a cornerstone of future success. Local people who live near chinchilla habitats play a crucial role in preventing poaching, protecting land, and supporting conservation initiatives. Education programs that teach the value of preserving wildlife and the long-term benefits of sustainable land. Use can help ensure that humans and chinchillas coexist peacefully. Global awareness is also growing. As more people learn about the history of chinchillas, their ecological role, and the threats they face, Support for international protection and ethical treatment increases. This awareness can translate into funding for conservation programs, stronger enforcement of wildlife laws, and more responsible behavior by those who keep chinchillas as pets. Despite the challenges, there are reasons for hope. Successful breeding programs, expanded reserves, and increased public support have already stabilized some populations and prevented extinction. The ongoing dedication of scientists, conservationists, and communities demonstrates that even a species once on the brink of disappearance can recover if given consistent care and protection. The story of chinchilla conservation is far from over. The choices made today will determine whether future generations will see wild chinchillas thriving in the Andes or only know them through stories, photographs, and captive populations. Every effort to protect their habitats, enforce laws, and educate people adds a new chapter to their survival story, shaping a future in which chinchillas continue to play a living role in the world's ecosystems. Chinchillas are small mammals with soft, dense fur and distinctive features that make them unique among rodents. Native to the Andes mountains of South America, these animals have adapted to live in rocky, high-altitude environments where temperatures can be cold and conditions challenging. Their bodies are compact and agile, with powerful hind legs that allow them to leap across rocky surfaces with ease. Their ears are large and rounded, aiding in acute hearing, while their bushy tails provide balance and communication cues. Their fur, one of the densest in the animal kingdom, protects them from cold mountain winds and helps reduce the risk of injury from predators. Chinchillas are members of the family Chinchillidae, which also includes viscachas, their closest living relatives. These species share many physical and behavioral traits, yet chinchillas are particularly noted for their small size, nocturnal habits, and specialized fur. Fossil evidence indicates that chinchillas have existed for millions of years, showing that their adaptations to mountain environments are the result of long evolutionary processes. Ancient relatives once roamed more widely, but over time, their range became restricted to the Andes, where conditions favored their survival and specialized traits. In the wild, chinchillas occupy niches in the ecosystem that connect them to other species. They feed primarily on vegetation, such as leaves, seeds, and bark, and in turn provide nourishment for predators. They face threats from competition for resources with other herbivores, environmental changes, and natural predators. Their behavior, from social groupings to daily activity patterns, reflects the strategies they have developed to survive in a challenging environment. Understanding these natural characteristics is crucial for anyone studying chinchillas, whether for scientific research, conservation, or responsible pet ownership. Chinchillas' interaction with humans has been complex. Over centuries, they have been hunted for their fur, used in scientific studies, and more recently, kept as companion animals. The history of human interaction highlights both the risks posed to wild populations and the potential for humans to contribute positively to their survival. Through legal protections, captive breeding programs, and educational efforts, people have helped prevent their extinction and continue to shape the future of the species. Protecting chinchillas requires understanding both their needs in the wild and the challenges they face in captivity. Conservation efforts focus on habitat preservation, legal protections, and carefully manage breeding programs that maintain genetic diversity and prepare animals for potential reintroduction into secure habitats. International agreements and national laws work together to prevent illegal hunting and trade, while local communities often play an active role in monitoring populations and reporting threats. Education and outreach programs teach the value of coexistence and encourage sustainable behavior that benefits both humans and wildlife. For chinchillas kept as pets, understanding their biology and natural behavior is essential for proper care. They require safe, spacious enclosures, dust baths to maintain their fur, a balanced diet of hay, pellets, and occasional treats and mental stimulation to prevent stress and boredom. Social behavior must be respected. Some chinchillas thrive in pairs or small groups, while others may prefer solitude. Human caretakers must consider ethics and responsibility, ensuring that the animal's physical and emotional needs are met, and that pets are never obtained through illegal or unethical means. Looking toward the future, the well-being of chinchillas, both in the wild and in human care, depends on continued scientific research, careful conservation management, and responsible stewardship. Protecting their habitats, enforcing laws, and supporting breeding programs are all critical steps, but so too is fostering global awareness. Every person who learns about chinchillas, whether through reading, observing, or caring for them as pets, contributes to a broader culture of respect and protection for these remarkable animals. By combining knowledge of their natural history, behavior, ecology, and human interactions, this textbook provides a complete picture of chinchillas as both wild animals and companions. Understanding the species in this comprehensive way helps ensure that chinchillas continue to survive, thrive, and inspire curiosity for generations to come. Thank you for spending your evening with us and watching Bedtime Animal Facts to fall asleep to. Tonight, we shared the quiet world of chinchillas, learning about their soft fur, their dust baths, and their peaceful way of life high in the mountains. These small details may seem ordinary, but that's the beauty of them. They give your thoughts something calm and steady to follow, without excitement, without rush, just a gentle rhythm to guide you toward rest. If you are still awake, notice how your body feels more relaxed than when you first began. Your breathing may already be slower, your eyelids heavier, your mind quieter. If sleep has already come, that is exactly as it should be. These facts are not here to be memorized or studied, but to float by like soft clouds, carrying you a little closer to the deep rest you deserve. Chinchillas themselves live quietly, hidden in burrows, safe and snug in the cool night air. You can imagine yourself just as safe, just as cozy, wrapped in your own warm place of rest. As the video comes to a close, know that more gentle episodes are always here when you need them. Whenever you would like to drift into another night of calm, boring animal facts. So thank you again for joining us. May your night be peaceful, your dreams be light, and your sleep be deep. Good night, and we'll see you again soon for another episode of Bedtime Animal Facts to fall asleep to. Chinchilla lullaby. Little chinchilla, soft as the snow, up in the mountains, quietly you go. Dust clouds surround you, gentle and light, keeping you cozy all through the night. Close your eyes now, furry and small. Dream of the hillside, the rocks, and the tall. Whiskers will twitch as the moon starts to glow. Little chinchilla, it's bedtime, you know. Rest in your burrow, safe, warm, and deep. The world will be waiting, but now it's time to sleep. With fur like a pillow and dreams soft and true. Little chinchilla, good night now to you. Thank you for watching. Please click like and subscribe.